Hello, true duelists. My name's Craig Fee, and am I wearing a suit because people keep requesting me to be in one, or did I simply immediately film a different video before this and have been too lazy to change? You tell me, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Single Card History, where I talk about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that didn't. And today's card, the bane of my existence, and one of the reasons 2012 Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucked so goddamn much, nearly as much as 2018 Yu-Gi-Oh! In fact, and that is saying something. I absolutely hate this card. It's Inzektor Hornet. Hornet was released in Order of Chaos as a super rare back in 2012, finalizing the format for a time and making me morally correct for hating my friend Adam. And notably, it took a literal decade for this card to get a reprint at all, with it getting 2 prints in 2022. First would come in the Grand Creators, with the winning card of the 2020 Created Card Project having gone to Inzektor, so they gave this card not only a rare print for you to be able to afford, but a collector's rare as well, so that you could, either way reasonably play the deck that won a 2-year-old contest at that time. Oh yeah, and the ultra rare print from Ghosts from the Past: The Second Haunting as well, because the cards included in that set were decided entirely by throwing darts at a wall. This card was on the ban list for a time in the TCG, being limited on the September 2012 ban list, where it would stay until the January 2019 ban list brought it right back up to 3, because at that point it had been long overdue for everyone everywhere in agreement except for me, because I hate these cards so goddamned much. A level 3 Dark Insect with 500 attack and 200 defense, its effect reads: once per turn, you can equip one Inzektor monster from your hand or graveyard to this card. While this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 3, also it gains attack and defense equal to this card's attack and defense. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can send this equipped card to the graveyard, then target one card on the field, destroy that target. And it sucks to play against. Actually, it's super good, but I'm a salty boy and I refuse to let the past die. Hornet's lone notable trait is the last part of its effect while it's equipped, to be able to send to the grave and then target something on the field and pop it, which in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fine. Maybe it'll bait a negate. Maybe it'll clear an opponent's card, and just maybe it will reinvent comedy by getting banished by a copy of Cosmic Cyclone. But in 2012, in the world where Bottomless Trap Hole is a staple, this was a fucking nightmare, dude. Or I should say it was really good and a nightmare for a lot of people, including myself. I'll start by looking at this card in its deck, and then I'll look at the meta it existed in, and then at some point I'll pound back a couple travel-sized Jack Daniels and hope to forget all this again, because 2012 was in fact the year the world ended. For Yu-Gi-Oh! Kinda. Inzektor is a deck of little bugs that have effects to equip each other or be equipped to each other and some shenanigans, and then effects that involve those equips. It's crazy how the deck has a theme. Hornet here is meant to be the removal, a simple and effective job that it does very well, and there are 2 Inzektors that matter most alongside Hornet, notably Dragonfly and Centipede. Both of these cards have effects that trigger when a card equipped to them is sent to the graveyard, and can once per turn equip an Inzektor from your hand or grave to themselves. So, Centipede can search out any Inzektor when an equipped spell or card attached to it leaves, and Inzektor Dragonfly can summon any other Inzektor from the deck. And since Hornet can send itself to the grave, you have a very, very easy way to trigger both of those effects. And it gets better, because on paper, it's pretty easy to see why that can be good. You can summon Dragonfly, equip a Hornet, and then pop an opponent's card. And once you've done that, you can then summon out a Centipede, and equip a Hornet, and pop an opponent's card to search a Dragonfly to do it again in the next turn. A very simple get 2 bodies, pop 2 cards, and, infinitely repeatable. Or repeatable twice, you tell me. Either way, that's good. That is done in 2012, that's very good. That's good by itself. But what if the opponent decided to try and play around Inzektors a little bit by investing minimal cards onto their own field? Well, if you don't have anything to pop, what's Inzektor gonna do, you might think? And as it turns out, they'll pop their own shit, and plus anyways. Because it wasn't uncommon for Inzektor decks to play things like their equipped spell Zect Caliber, which would give your Inzektor 800 attack, but more importantly, if it was sent from the field to the grave, it could recover any Inzektor monster from the grave back to the hand, or Gigamantis, which could equip itself from the hand to an Inzektor, and most importantly, if it left the field while equipped, it would summon back an Inzektor monster. So, that's abusable by itself. But then we get to the fact that, fun fact, Dragonfly's effect is not once per turn and can chain to itself. As in, you can summon a Dragonfly, equip a Excalibur or a Gigamantis, and then use Dragonfly's effect to equip Hornet to it, and then use Hornet's effect to send itself to the grave to pop your other equip spell. Now 2 equips have left Dragonfly, and you get to summon 2 Inzektors from your deck. It's not really hard to see how that can snowball out of control today, let alone in 2012. And if you used Mantis, you could even revive that Hornet, then use the used Dragonfly and Hornet to make an Xyz like Leviair, or maybe Leviathan, detach 2500 beater, and now your Inzektors can get their Hornet pop and search on top of your big ass body. So it was pretty good. It was pretty reliable back in the day. Very strong, and the deck had access to even bigger tools that were generic at the time. Things like Dark Arm Dragon, because all of these things are dark, and with Excalibur and Gigamantis, you can play with the number of darks in your graveyard, and some people would even throw in Big Daddy BLS, since Effect Veiler was a really good light monster and easy to pitch into the grave. So, by itself, Inzektor was really, really, really good, whether or not they had a board to go against or not, because if they weren't doing this, they were popping your shit to plus anyways. But the meta around it made it good too. Chaos Dragon, Dino Rabbit, and Windup were the other main threats from that era, with Chaos Dragons having plenty of bodies to threaten OTKs. The light Pulsar floating into Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon meant you constantly had new bodies to pop with Hornet. If you were running up against Dino Rabbit, you could run up against things like Fiendish Chain, but you might also be easily able to pop things like Bottomless Trap Hole and Mirror Force and things like that the opponent has to kind of wait to be able to use, since your little Dragonfly sure as shit ain't getting bottomless. And then of course there's Windup, which had an abundance of little machines thanks to Zen Mighty, and their continuous spell Windup Factory, which would be used to get searches for, or to, you know, pop it plus with your Hornet. Take your fucking pick. Now, it's not like Inzektor beat all of these decks. It wasn't the definitive best deck of the format. Truthfully, I remember it struggling a good amount against Dino Rabbit, especially with Solemns and Dolkalagia, but they weren't like, you know, dominant. It was a weird ass triangle format with like some rock, paper, scissors-esque elements, but all of them were fucking good, okay? Staples like Mirror Force and any Battle Trap, all dog shit against Inzektor Hornet. And for more icing on the cake, in Order of Chaos format, if you decided to not set all your cards to, you know, hope that maybe the Inzektor doesn't have Excalibur or Gigamantis, then there was a chance that your opponent was going to be playing Windup, and that was a deck that could hand loop you to rip 3 or 4 cards out of your hand. So the most effective thing to do in 2012 was to simply inherently fucking know what was going to happen. Doesn't that sound fun? Set all your cards and die to Hornet, or keep them all in your hand and die to Hornet plussing or Windup hand loop, and then go, well, fuck it, I guess I'll set anyways, and then die to Heavy Storm as the alternative. The options are limited, and all of them suck. 2012 format is regarded as one of the worst, as I'm sure you've heard, just because this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Had a number of people stop playing altogether. It's a number of reasons. Some people list that the March 2012 ban list, which only hit Plant Synchro and didn't address the Inzektor Windup shenanigans and Dino Rabbit that had been going on. Some people addressed the fact that Card Fight Vanguard was new, and so people decided, well, fuck this shit, I'm gonna go play that. One of many such cases of Yu-Gi-Oh! Dying, as it were, was 2012. As said, though, this card and Dragonfly did get limited in September of 2012, only after 9 months of suffering. Reasonable. And while you can say it would be unrealistic for Konami to hit these cards only 2 months after their release on the March 2012 ban list, it really didn't change the player opinion that much, or how infamously bad 2012 is to a number of players. After their limit in 2012, Inzektor pretty much fell off. Mostly. It did immediately win its first YCS ever at YCS Seattle in 2012, because it had never gotten first place prior to this list, and this came after the limits, which is cosmically funny on some level, and the deck did continue to get a smattering of regional tops throughout 2013 and 2014, but once Duelist Alliance dropped in August of 2014, this deck pretty well died. Stopped showing up from what I can find. Not even after getting new support from the TCG's Create a Card contest could Inzektor make a comeback, since with 2-card combos, yeah, you can pull stuff off, but that's some 2010 shit, dude. At this point, we're in the 2020s. 1-card Unbreakable board combo, or your deck is fucking trash. Deal with it. The drama that did follow the contest from the 2020 Create a Card was great, though. We had someone unironically paying real-life money to bot vote for fucking Valkyrie, causing Konami to have to redo the entire voting pattern thing. Not to mention that the one where they found out the Valkyrie bots had been used was against Inzektor, and then Inzektor ended up winning the entire thing anyways. And again, it hadn't had reprints up until that point. It was just very funny time. And the one claim of fame Valkyrie has to them. So great job, Valkyrie players. Overall, Inzektor Hornet is one of the faces of one of our game's worst formats. It's a very simple pop effect that, coupled with a lack of hard-won returns, was a pain in the ass for anyone going up against it with one of the big 3 decks of Dino, Rabbit, Inzektor, and Windup, and a fucking nightmare if you weren't. So if you were some dumbass playing Heroic in 2012, and your friend Adam randomly spent $200 to buy a full-power Inzektor deck, and you had spent $40 on your dog shit Heroics, you may or may not have strong feelings about this piece of shit. Inzektor is a deck remembered for punishing you regardless of how you play it. If you don't set cards, they're gonna go off, and if they set cards, they're going to go off. And I, for one, am very glad that it's irrelevant, so I don't have to relive my fucking war flashbacks to a time when I somehow was even more broke then than I am now. That's insane. Fuck you, Inzektor Hornet. Fuck everything you stand for. I hope you rot in hell, you piece of shit. No bias though, so that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, Inzektor Hornet. Stay tuned for the next video and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. As always, hit subscribe to me, Craig Man, Yu-Gi-Oh! Plan, Inzektor Stan, not at all. Fuck it. Thank you for watching. Become a true duelist, impress your smoking Italian wife, and maybe I will keep wearing suits, maybe I won't. Who fucking knows? You have to come back to the next video to find out. Baba booey. Baba booey. Baba booey. Baba booey.